Did you know that not all of the cards are actually on Magic Online? This is relevant to today's video. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and we're going to do a little history lesson before we start talking about today's deck. We're going to talk about Keen Duelist for a moment. So I'm just going to read this one. At the beginning of your upkeep, you and target opponent each reveal the top card of your library. You each lose life equal to the mana value of the card revealed by the other player. You each put the card you revealed into your hand. So this is another kind of Dark Confidant option. But it's kind of neat in a Brainstorm format where you can potentially fix the top card of your library, as you can do things like Brainstorm, put an Emrakul the Aeon Torn on top, reveal it, and your opponent loses 15 life. This is very easily doable on turn 3. And I'm pretty sure you can find a way to deal the last couple of points of damage, right? So, about 1 year and 3 months ago, Pat made a donation to see a Keen Duelist deck on this channel, rationalizing that this card would be on Magic Online sometime in the not too distant future. As this card is from Commander 2021. And just as a quick check-in, for those of you who are still in the COVID time mush and don't know what year it is August of 2025. So Pat has finally given up on this card ever coming to Magic Online and has asked me to play with a Death Shadow deck list instead. But justice for Keen Duelist. Hopefully it makes it to Magic Online. Now I am going to say that this card was printed prior to Daybreak Games taking over Magic Online. And Daybreak Games has done a really good job of getting older cards onto Magic Online as they have time. But there are still very clear and noticeable gaps. So with that being said, here's Pat's main deck. I threw together a sideboard for it, just kind of taking nods from what Dimir tempo decks are normally doing with their sideboards right now. The game 1 plan is pretty clear. You have some large aggressive elements that have some ability to kind of hate or interact with graveyards. You have a large ability to bounce things, and hopefully you take enough self-damage from Thoughtseizes and Watery Graves and Force of Wills and Fetches to enable a Death Shadow to quickly close out a game. We are not going to be hyper-aggressive here. It is more likely that we interact with Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Force of Will, Brazen Borrowers in the first 2 to 3 turns, and then maybe around turn 3 or 4, we start looking at trying to stick one of these and ride it to victory. So we are a tempo deck, I suppose, but it is not the lowest to the ground possible tempo deck. It is a tempo deck that is going to hit hard a couple of times. Otherwise, this is just kind of normal blue-black good stuff. A lot of what you see here is going to overlap with either the Tempo or the Reanimator shell. But notably, we don't have Tamiyo as a source of card advantage here, which is something that you often see in these shells. And Grief isn't legal in the format anymore, so we don't have that very easy way to just reanimate a Grief on turn 1 and super quickly lower our life total to get Death's Shadow online. Note that within the current metagame, there is this kind of shitty game that is going on where if you want to be good against Oops, you need to do something like Leyline of the Void, and if you want to be good against Reanimator, you need to do something like Fairy Macabre. So I think this sideboard probably has room for 2 to 3 pieces of Graveyard Hate. I think the Orcish Bowmasters that I threw in here is probably the weakest slot in the sideboard, but I think it does an okay job of rounding out the deck. Wait, I had 15 when I drew this up. I'm missing something. There we go. I got distracted by pulling up Keen Duelist and I didn't actually insert the Force of Negations. Wait, let's match their art. Bam. Okay. Anyway, I think the Orcish Bowmasters is probably the weakest sideboard slot. I think I still want it, as it is just a generically very, very powerful card. But it may be that since I don't have it in the main deck, it is not worth having, and there are other very, very strong options. With that, let's go ahead and hop into some matches here, folks. If you need any cards, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order. You always get free shipping. They've got 95 some odd percent of standard legal cards available on their website and something like 100,000 different distinct Magic cards up there. So they're probably going to have whatever it is that you need. If you see this purple banner in person, check it out. There's going to be great deals underneath it. So let's battle. So I don't think I like this hand. We have 2 double black pip cards with a single blue source in hand that does not contribute to casting these on turn 2. And I am somewhat likely to brainstorm lock myself and look at the same cards over and over again. I think I will pitch this one. I think it's too easy for that to go wrong. This, on the other hand, looks great. This is a keep. I'm always keeping the 2 lands. I'm always keeping Douthie. I don't know that I need land 3. I think I'm going to put Sink into Stupor back. And I think my plan for the first turn cycle is to Surveil. It's fucking oops. Yes, that one I will let resolve. I need to make it through this turn. I think I'm going to fight right here. I think I don't want my opponent to cast a payoff card and then have it in graveyard before my Douthie Voidwalker hits play to make Reanimate on it live. Brainstorm can go to Yard purely to fuel a future Murktide Regent. Hey, Murktide Regent. That is convenient. Fuck you, oops, all spells. Graveyard off. Opponent shocking in a land. Is this the removal spell? No, this is Boggart Trawler on the other side. Why did you pay the 3 life here? What is this? It might be a Spirit Guide into a 4-mana removal spell for this. In which case, I guess I want to be able to brainstorm into Force of Will to protect this. I guess I don't play anything. This does mean that I can't brainstorm into Thoughtseize. Yeah, alright, so that is a Spirit Guide. Now I have the chance to protect this. Draw a different interaction, unfortunately. Put a Murktide on top. Now I don't get to wasteland my opponent. But I think my line was correct, as having the opportunity to protect this is a big deal. That's fine. Didn't die. That's great. So, wasteland you. Murktide Regent. Bam, bam, bam. How about bam and bam? 2 turn clock. Gonna die on turn 4. Yep. Fucking cool. So I Force of Willed, stuck a game 1 graveyard hate card, wasteland my opponent, and still lost on turn 4. Fuck this deck. And a few clicks later, Thassa's Oracle comes in off of Dread Return. Alright, Consign is fine. Force of Negation is a little awkward. Sometimes you have to go after a Dark Ritual. It's free interaction. I am probably going to play it. Fairy Macabre is not the leyline that we would like for this specific matchup. Nullrod helps with Sideboard Pivot, Goblin Charbelchers, which Force of Negation also helps with. Gonna probably board out all of the Fatal Pushes. There are occasionally things like Rotting Regisaur, Jukes, that we will hopefully just use stuff like Brazen Borrower to deal with. I'm still going to need quite a few cuts here. We might be going down just hard threats. Like get rid of Death's Shadow here and lean on Douthie and Murktide to win the game. And Brazen Borrower if we have to. Might even be trimming one of those. Well, those are great cards that I simply cannot cast. This is slightly awkward in terms of the mana. I'm going to hope this is good enough. We'll get rid of the threat here. I can find one of those later. So I will Thoughtseize my opponent. Land Dark Ritual, 3 mana. Yeah, my opponent has turn 1 with Undercity Informer. So my opponent has 1 land and I have a Wasteland. Normally I might be thinking about taking that land, but I'm hoping to just get rid of it via Wasteland. The Dark Ritual is the biggest thing that accelerates my opponent forward. I'm going to try taking that. Cool, now I get to get this with Wasteland. And hopefully leave these cards stranded in my opponent's hand for a while. So, Wasteland, blow up my opponent's only initial mana source. And then hopefully I get around to the point where I can consign some of these cards. So that's great. So I will now Thoughtseize you. There's a duress there now. Taking the Undercity Informer is awkward with a Dread Return in hand already. Might still just be taking the Undercity Informer. I am in theory answering Charbelcher via Consign. And Undercity Informer can be played out at 3 mana, not 4. That Dread Return can. Lion's Eye Diamond doesn't matter as much. I could also just take the duress to protect my Consign, which is perhaps reasonable. I will do that. Brazen Borrower. I'm gonna say we can do better. We have a land. Force of Will is not bad. That is a generic catch-all. I think I'm going to go ahead and brainstorm now. These are fine cards. I'm not going to have Consign up immediately. I think I'm going to bury Consign, put Brazen Borrower on top, do this, get rid of Brazen Borrower, Thoughtseize you. At this point, I think I'm into taking this. Now, I did trim some threats in post-sideboard games here, so it will be a little harder than normal for me to find one. It's not like Death Shadow is good yet anyway. Alright, opponent has mana. Casting a Poxwalkers. I do have to avoid just dying to this. I think I am okay hard casting a Daze. Oh, maybe I don't. They do have to deal with Dread Return and Charbelcher. Maybe I don't. So let's see what we have here. These are okay cards. I think I'm just going to cast another immediate Brainstorm and get through them. Okay, there is a fetch land. I think I am not going to wasteland my opponent. I'm going to put Force of Will on top and probably redraw it. I will go to 11. That's going to resolve. I'm going to draw the Force. I don't get to draw the wasteland that's under it. I'm at 8. Oh, that resolves. There's a Consign. I think I'm going to go ahead and cast that. I think I'll replicate it twice. Get them. Now I'll fetch. I've used both Surveil lands already. I'll just take a Watery Grave out of the deck. Now let's see if I die to Poxwalkers for not Force of Willing it. I'm at 4. Force of Will is now awkward. Alright, there is a Dread Return. I think what I'm going to do here is float blue, daze that, returning this land. This gives me more looks. Alright, that's fine. I'm now in this awkward position where my Force of Wills don't work anymore. I'm at 1. So this always takes my Force of Negation. I'm just not going to let my opponent know what the other cards in my hand are. Alright, Brainstorm. Well, I can't fetch, but will do, I guess. So I can cast a Fairy Macabre that can block this. Now I will be in the territory of die to Narcomoeba beats. Alright, we trade. Yep, can't Force of Will that. I'm dead. So despite all of those counter spells, despite all of that interaction, my opponent handily beat me, and it wasn't fucking close. We had the chance to remove this from the format, but this is now just a part of it until December. Game. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. Alright, how about a real round of Magic this time? Watery Grave, Shock, pass turn. Blooded Strand, sure. I believe that I'm just going to go ahead and Brainstorm at end step here in an attempt to hit the second black colored pip to play out Douthie Voidwalker. No. Denied. I did find a Ponder. We'll probably use to shuffle away these Death Shadows. I have to redraw one of them. That's my second colored pip for Voidwalker. I don't really know that I'm in love with those cards. I don't know that I want 2 of them. I could take Daze and Sewer, but I don't have the Daze right now if I want to make Sewers as my land drop to do this next turn. Let's shuffle. And I don't get to do that right now. I think I'm just going to go ahead and play this as a tapped land. Let's do it untapped. This gives me some flexibility. So I need to just hard eject on something like Entomb. Okay, seeing the blue-black land here, I think I'm going to go ahead and do this. Okay, I found Daze, that's cool. I don't have black-black yet. Guess I will hide some Murktide Regents. Yeah, hide the Death's Shadow. Brainstorm is good. Fetch clears. And I'll just say no to that. Lets me shock again with Watery Grave. Opponent dazes back. And I lose Douthie. This is just so very awkward as I land right now for not casting these Thoughtseizes. I think I am going to Wasteland my opponent so that 2-drops like Bowmasters don't come down, or so that Entomb plus Reanimate doesn't come down. And then hopefully I Thoughtseize away something critical, and I stick one of my 3 threats. Let's go 13 Thoughtseize. Oh, we are Doomsdaying. I think I'm just going to take the best selection spell here in the form of Brainstorm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My opponent... No, I guess playing around Daze is fine there, right? Yeah, I guess that's fine. Opponent declined, found another Ponder. I think the plan is Operation Thick Murktide Regent. Might be Force of Willed. Knowing my opponent has a counterspell and knowing that I have second Murktide Regent here is a little weird in terms of like what exactly I exile. So I could go conservative and make a 6/6 Murktide Regent and leave some fuel in here for this under the assumption that this does get countered, which I think is what I'm going to do. All right, so one of the Thassa's Oracles is now in exile. And I potentially now want to Thoughtseize my opponent to strip this Force of Will. Well, opponent's going to just Thoughtseize me back instead. And with 3 threats here, I imagine I lose my Thoughtseize. And I am correct. Hey, that's not bad. So that means that I'm going to Death Shadow here. It's a small creature, but it's a creature. It is only a 2/2 right now, which is not enough to pressure my opponent in the face of a Doomsday pile. It's a 3/3 as soon as I Force of Will. Alright, we're going. I think I am dead. My opponent forces back, and then builds their Doomsday pile to win next turn. And my last card is a known Douthie Voidwalker. Pile is built. Let's just take a quick glance here. Very personal tutor build with Tamiyo's. I don't know that Daze is going to be enough, but I have lethal on board next turn. Alright, opponent is committed. Cycle another Edge of Autumn. It looks like we're just doing a hardcast Oracle with 0 cards in hand. So that should do it. Lethal on board. No bonus mana. Excellent. Daze from the top ropes. Alright, Force of Negation is good. Bowmasters is fine. Ensign is probably fine. So I have to keep in mind that Tamiyo is in my opponent's deck. So Fatal Push is kind of the go-to thing that is not really great against what my opponent is doing, but respects Tamiyo as a card advantage engine. I'm going to turn a Douthie into a Bowmasters. I think that's easy. Then I might do some trimming, turn a Push into a counterspell, turn a Douthie into a counterspell, turn a Brazen Borrower into a counterspell, trim 1 Shadow. Maybe that Brazen Borrower is better than Douthie. Douthie requires me to tap out. This looks fine. Delta from my opponent, and there is a Tamiyo. I have no way to address that right now. That is going to get a lot of card advantage. I am going to Force of Will that. I respect the fuck out of Tamiyo. So now that I have another land, I can ponder on 1 into Bowmasters on 2, and that's like fine. I am going to Watery Grave and do some self-damage here. Daze is fine. I think I'll go bam, bam, bam. No shuffle. Graveyard is filling quickly for Murktide Regent purposes. Don't get to snag that Brainstorm with Bowmasters, but hopefully I'm in all right shape. So I will drop my fetch land, pass the turn with the intention of playing Bowmasters at some point. Opponent will probably surveil there and likes the card. And drop 3, we are in Doomsday territory. And it is happening. So I will float a blue and attempt a daze. It doesn't work. Pitching into the Flood Maw, which is a bounce spell. So that means Doomsday is resolving. I'm going to have 1 blind draw to interact with that, plus this Orcish Bowmasters that is currently in my hand. Opponent is at 8. My life total doesn't really matter here. Let's throw down Bowmasters. Ping my opponent to 7. I need something from this draw step, I think. That'll do. Send in for 2. Opponent goes to 5. I'll shock myself to 11 and pass. We're chillin'? We're chillin'. Which means I didn't use my mana. Ooh. Send in. Opponent has a long goodbye, which cannot be countered. That's happening. Opponent goes to 4. Now, the unfortunate thing here is that my opponent's best cards are probably still in library. And I really hope that I don't lose the game by casting a Thoughtseize and then not being able to replicate a consign trigger. But I think this is still worth doing. Fuck you, Brainstorm. Now this just becomes a question of, did my opponent wiggle in a way in which they can beat consign? Fuck. I don't think I pay. I think I have to hold up consign or I die. But again, I think the good stuff is on top of library right now. So then I will surveil. I do not need Watery Grave. Like, opponent is just going to pass the turn again. Not getting to use my mana appropriately. I'll send in for 1. I think this game is no longer about life totals. Is there a Thassa's Oracle out here in exile? So the answer is no. So my opponent between hand and library has 2 Thassa's Oracles. My consign stops one of them. I don't have a way to stop the other. Unless I do something weird like my opponent plays the first Thassa's Oracle and I Brazen Borrower it back to hand with Petty Theft. And then the second one I counter with Consign. That could work. And this turn I have 3 mana, so that if my opponent doesn't do anything with their turn and waits once again, which I don't think they will, but if they did, I could just hardcast Brazen Borrower and my opponent dies. That is a duress, that resolves. It takes Consign. My opponent has Cavern of Souls, 1 card remaining in deck though. So there's Thassa's Oracle, but I just Petty Theft that back to hand so I don't die immediately. I now need something that stops Thassa's Oracle, or alternatively a Bowmaster. Land is not what I'm looking for. I am dead. So I send in, I put my opponent to 2. I cast a big friend. I cast a slightly smaller little friend. But then my opponent recasts Oracle and I'm dead. I mean, I'm glad that I left up the Brazen Borrower Petty Theft or I died last turn. But that only prolonged my life by 1 turn cycle, unfortunately. We get another game to try again. Tapping out for Douthie is awkward. I'm going to swap that for a Brazen Borrower. Okay, it is awkward that I don't have untapped black on turn 1. Hopefully that doesn't matter. For, I don't know, about the 4th time we are seeing Sink into Stupor not casting Douthie Voidwalker as being absolutely a deal breaker. I'm just going to take that land. That land potentially lets me play Douthie next turn. That land lets me fetch for Ponder. That land is fuel for Murktide Regent. I'm perfectly fine with that. Oh shit, we're going now. Yep. So we're going to run into the same problem as before, where the cards that I want to Thoughtseize are in my opponent's deck. Fuck. Yeah. I don't see Cavern of Souls, so I imagine my opponent's pile, in some capacity, has Cavern of Souls and 2x Thassa's Oracle. I guess I could do the counter spell count. So there's a Force of Will. Oh, and my opponent has a Force of Will backing it up. Okay. Not great. I think what I'm going to do is Ponder looking for interaction. Yes. What way do I play this? Wasteland? Cutting my opponent off of mana may or may not be viable. I think I am fine with attempting this. I could take 10 minutes and try to backwards figure out exactly what my opponent's Doomsday pile is. I'm not going to do that. Alright, so order is now random. Opponent brainstorms. It can just be pedal pedal. Nope. Not dead immediately. So now my opponent should have a Force of Will in hand. I will go down to 17. I will Thoughtseize you. So my opponent Force of Wills, anticipating that Cavern of Souls is coming and that a Thassa's Oracle could currently be in hand, I believe that I Force of Will back. Pitching Murktide Regent. It is Cavern of Souls in hand instead, and a Daze on top of Library. Daze in hand and Cavern. So I take this. Now the issue here is that my opponent has 2 Thassa's Oracles as their remaining cards, so they're just going to go Cavern into Thassa's Oracle. And I don't have the mana for Sink into Stupor. Yup. We are dead. GG's. Okay, opening hand is fine. Although, again, we are seeing the awkwardness of trying to cast Dauthi Voidwalker with the mana base as it is currently constructed. It is just not a turn 2 card in any capacity in this deck. And we got another one. Alright, well, let's prolong the game until my mana is functional. I don't really love this whole, like, Wasteland thing in a world where Tamiyo at 1 mana gets to dig you out of early 1-for-1 trades. Going to Ponder. You could make an argument that Brainstorm is better to cast here. I'm fine with these cards. So this is my second land drop already made. Assume I don't want that card all that much. But I might end up redrawing it if I Wasteland on my next turn. Or Polluted Delta. Alright, there is Tamiyo. Really awkward if my opponent has Brainstorm. I really want to Fatal Push that card. So, I think I'm going to attempt Fatal Push, hope I don't get punished. Don't get punished. And I think Wasteland now. I could move to my end step and pass priority and play Chicken with a Surveil land. But if my opponent does not crack for the Surveil land, then in their upkeep, when I go to Wasteland them, they could cast an Orcish Bowmasters, and I would really prefer that not happen. That might be me being too conservative. Bloodstained Mire comes down. Opponent has hit land drops through double Wasteland, unfortunately for me. And now has Murktide Regent. It's a small one, but it's still a Murktide Regent. I redraw that city that I know about. I now need to be a little careful with my life total. I'm just going to kind of assume that my opponent hits me. Hold up, is there not an Underground Sea in here? For real? For real, there is not an Underground Sea in here. Okay. That is almost certainly a deck building mistake. I think you need that option. I'm going to go to 15 and throw down Dauthi. Dauthi sticks. The clock differential is probably not all that bad and probably favors me if I can throw down a couple of these creatures. I don't know if my stuff is going to resolve is kind of the thing. If my opponent is not playing more threats, then it's somewhat likely that they have answers to what I'm doing. Let's see what those answers look like. I don't have things with void counters yet. Slightly awkward. I really want to use my mana to cast Death's Shadow this turn. Maybe I get greedy and get both. Maybe I get greedy and get both. Daze occurs. I was Daze on the Thoughtseize, not the Brainstorm. Did not get both. Now I guess the plan is stick Murktide Regent to block their Murktide Regent. There's not a Daze line that works, right? So I can cast Daze without paying its mana cost. That is one alternate cost. I do not believe I can cast it for its alternate cost and return an island. That is 2 different alternate costs at the same time. I think it is hide Murktide Regent, put Wasteland on top. I think I'm still sacking this. Cast. Oh, I see. So select the card, cast the card, then get rid of the Wasteland that is on top of my deck. And then hopefully next turn I stabilize against their Murktide Regent with my own Murktide Regent. And hopefully play Death's Shadow at the same time. That would give me a really good sword and shield position. 1, 2, instant, some other card. 7/7 in play. And attempt to drop a secondary threat. Nice. Push is fine. It's the... I have no ability to remember the name of the card. It's the 2 mana lose a life or discard a card removal spell that I'm now worried about. Oh. That's not great either. It punched for 4 for that. Down to 3. I think I need a land here. Not that one? Or wait, does that one work? So play tapped Undercity Sewers, put a Force of Will into Graveyard. Yeah, that works. So no shuffle, Surveil, Force of Will in, Force, Ponder. Take the creatures out of my graveyard in case my opponent has Reanimate. This is a 5/5 to their 4/4. And I will draw Force of Will, which I can use to stop Hardcast Brazen Borrower, while playing out 2 Dauthi Voidwalkers. In no capacity am I stable, but I have a real plan. And I think this is a Days Be Damned situation. I've got to just cast my cards. Dauthis are a 3-turn clock. Dauthis are not a 3-turn clock. I don't get to force that. Fatal Push can answer Tamiyo if I need to. Ponder's fine. The Tamiyo can't really attack into Murktide Regent. Alright, opponent has a land drop. That is happening, I think. I have to not die to this, because I am exactly at 3. Opponent passes the turn. Days? That means I can cast this Brainstorm. I think I will. I could see not casting it, though. New Dauthi? New Douthi's not bad. The other cards are a little awkward. I think I'm actually going to put it like this. This gives me a chance to daze in the next turn cycle, and then still have Force of Will pitch Brainstorm. It means that I am redrawing that land awkwardly 2 turns from now. I'm hoping that's fine. Alright, everybody is coming to party. So I have to do this or I die. Opponent fetches. Well, that sure doesn't interact with Force of Will or Daze. Now, Kaito conveniently has 3 power. That's rough. GG. So it looks like my opponent is playing Tempo. Going to sideboard for Tempo. I think I like this. I think I like Edict. I think I like Bowmaster. I think I probably won't Force of Will, and then I will just trim some other cards somewhere else. Maybe trim 1 Daze. It kind of feels like my lands being in play matters. I have lands and spells. I don't have an immediate plan. Ponder can help make a plan. I have some ability to start doing self-damage for Death's Shadow. I will do this. I will ponder. I just want to find business. Oh, that's business. I'll probably keep all of those. Fantastic. Now I have a Bowmaster hiding on top of my deck. And it looks like opponent is just passing the turn. I will probably just do the same. I'll play a land drop that allows me to Murktide Regent later. I think we just stare at each other for a little while here. I don't really want to be the first person to make a move right now. Let's see if opponent wants to be the first person to make a move. First person who makes a move with a card like Bowmasters, I think, is at a disadvantage. Land drop 3. We're chilling. Land drops for days. Pass turn. No plays. Only card that has been cast this game is a Ponder. No sign of that changing. I'll Surveil land here, though. I think that's right. Yeah. Comfortable casting a Thoughtseize and seeing what happens. Let's go. The stack might get a little out of line here. Yep. Let's tap that differently. Leave open that land. No, let's not. So I Bowmaster you, and then you're going to Bowmaster me, and then I'm going to Shoulder's Edict you. Fatal Push instead. Okay. I accept. Opponent gets pinged for 1. Brainstorm is going to resolve. Thoughtseize will still get a card. It will just get a worse card. I mean, I'm still getting a Tamiyo out of it. That's fine. So now, do I want to ponder? I can cast a Shoulder's Edict on my own turn. I'm not getting Ponder Shuffle out of this. Seeing my opponent's hand, I don't think I need to wasteland them. So I'm going to bring myself to 12 and ponder. Meh, I don't want 2 of those. I got a new ponder instead. I think I'll call it a turn there. I think wasteland as a colorless pip for Shoulder's Edict is potentially good. We'll see what my opponent has for me. It is a Goyf. That is a Goyf backed by a Force of Will. But my Edict does not answer that immediately. Unless it does. Even as Wasteland in play was solid. Imagine this is Force of Will, pitching Force of Will. Then I will Shoulder's Edict. Please sacrifice a non-token creature. And I successfully clear this. Opponent didn't play out another Goyf. Now this is gone. Send in for 1. And then next turn, I have a really good turn in some capacity. Fuck, it's another one. All right. Well, hopefully I find an answer to that, and it can't be Shoulder's Edict this time because my opponent is going to play out another Goyf to protect it after they saw what just happened. So I will ponder. Brazen Borrower. Is a short-term answer good enough? It might be. Say yes. So then I will fetch. I need the blue mana here. Is it Watery Grave or Island? Murktide Regent, Brazen Borrower, Death Shadow. I just do it all. Watery Grave. Petty Theft. This Goyf out of play. Do the one with Evasion first around Daze. Stick an 8/8, and then a 4/4. That 4/4 will, in theory, get bigger. So all my chips are down. Counterbalance. Sure. That's a unexpected card. Goyf comes back. And I guess I am casting this, right? Well, it has Thoughtseize coming, which is a dead card. So my opponent can currently hardcast a theoretical Force of Will. I know Thoughtseize is their next card. I will Wasteland. And I'll send in. And I think my plan is trade Death's Shadow with Goyf. Opponent kept with their Ponder. I think I am making this trade. I am very, very scared of this card. My opponent gains some life there. They're still dead on board to Murktide Regent, which I think means their last card has to be a removal spell, or they have to use their mana on Brazen Borrower. Alright, my opponent has conceded. Does knowing Counterbalance exists change anything? I don't really think so. My dazes get worse on the draw. I could play a couple of Force of Wills. If my opponent is going to play super patiently like they did that game, I could see this being fine. I'm very glad that that fight where we stared at each other for 6 turns or whatever it was ended in my favor. This is a reasonable set of cards that I'm happy with. A Murktide Regent probably gets pitched to Force of Will. I cannot answer that right now. Again, I respect this card a lot. This is a really bad Daze situation, though. Yeah. Thanks, I hate it. I am going to Thoughtseize here and take a Brainstorm if my opponent has one. I just can't deal with the Planeswalker side of this right now. Oh, hey. Speak of the devil. Alright. So if I ponder into something like a Fatal Push next turn, the Tamiya will have replaced itself, but not have accrued noticeable card advantage. My Bowmaster and Douthys aren't, like, the safest right now. Oh, we're doing something else now? To draw a Goyf? No, draw a Ponder. That's fine. Would have been a Brainstorm. That's not really what I'm looking for right now. Let's try to find an answer to Tamiyo. Those aren't really answers to Tamiyo. Well, I guess I could Brazen Borrower, flash in, and block next turn. Means not casting a Thoughtseize this turn, which is awkward because Fatal Push is in my opponent's hand. My opponent can... Well, they can't have the mana to crack a Clue and Fatal Push at the same time. But they can another turn cycle from now. Let's shuffle that. Get a Wasteland. So we're going to go to 12 here. And let's see what's going on. It is Fatal Push. An opponent would have had Revolt off Polluted Delta. So they would go Underground Sea this turn to crack a Clue. Or maybe not. So now my opponent has another Clue. I have exactly one tiny little fly in this room. I don't have an answer to Tamiyo. Wastelanding doesn't feel great. I think I'm playing this out though and doing a Bowmaster in response to a Clue token. So opponent fetches, cracks a Clue. I will respond with Bowmasters. That goes to face, putting my opponent to 17 and then 16. I don't like my position here. It feels very bad, yeah. Now this Tamiyo is just eating me alive. I have no source of card advantage. I'm not taking damage, but I am very quickly losing to this card. All it takes is my opponent finding something like a Brainstorm or a Murktide Regent or a Goyf, and this game is going to overwhelmingly start favoring them. I can attack for 1 into the Tamiyo. I can attack for nothing into the Tamiyo. Okay, cool. Once again, we see Dauthi Voidwalker being hard to cast. Because this is a Wasteland, I cannot black, black, blue, blue. Incredibly awkward. I also think I need to hurt myself here. I think I wasteland this and throw down a Murktide Regent, force Thoughtseize, ponder, Thoughtseize. I'm going to take the creature out of graveyard as well. In case there's a random reanimate running around. That's turn. So my opponent has so many good ways to play this here. Oh, they're just getting back a ponder. Very fast shuffle. Fatal push is fine. It's the Murktide Regent that's scary. Ooh, shit. I'm going to do this in the way that is best versus Daze. Fatal push here. Douthie Voidwalker. Alright, there's Daze. Very glad I played around that. And attack and kill Tamiyo. Okay. I don't know how everything just went my way, but it did. Like, admittedly, I am hellbent with a single creature in play, and all it takes is something like a Brazen Borrower to get my opponent out of this, but I did not foresee ending up in this fortuitous of a spot. I get to just hit my opponent for roughly half of their life total here. 9. Opponent's got a Wasteland, that doesn't matter. I have extra mana. Douthie is cool. If my opponent wants to do anything, they'll do it in response to that anyway, so might as well just make my attack and not give them any extra information. Opponent is at 2. At this point, throw down. Opponent cracks a clue. Opponent has 4 cards in hand. They have to have something. It may just be things like Nethergoyf that are not relevant to the game currently. I don't believe that I won that one. Or at least that I won it that easily. GG. Alright, I do not want to keep beating the dead horse, as it is already very dead by this point of the video. But, like, you know. I'm going to hope that Wasteland is good against my opponent, because if it's not good, this hand is pretty rough. That's a Wastelandable land. That's a mana dork. I think I'm playing against Nadu. Let's try to keep the Nadu from getting into play. I will Wasteland, but this doesn't feel the best, right? Like, my opponent is on board, and they are going to have 2 mana at a time where I have 0 mana in play. I don't have an active Daze. I think my opponent has Brainstorm. They tapped and untapped that Noble Hierarch and then didn't cast anything. So, let's do this. Do Watery Grave, and it's very awkward to Thoughtseize into what I suspect is a known Brainstorm. I guess I won't, and I will Ponder instead. Well, I guess that's the plan. Go away, Lone Fly. I can't smack at you because you keep landing on my computer screen. There's the known Brainstorm, so I guess I'm glad I did not Thoughtseize. Never going to get to cast this Douthie Voidwalker. And another fetch. It's Teferi instead. I guess I'll Daze. Save the Force of Will for a potential Nadu. I mean, hopefully I just take the Nadu right here with Thoughtseize. I can't cast my Douthie. I can cast my Murktide Regent and try to aggro my opponent out. I think I am taking Teferi. The issue here is that with both Teferi and Force of Will there, my opponent is very good at effectively shutting down my counterspells. Some portion of the time, my opponent brainstorms and then shuffles away the Force of Will, opting to keep fair cards. That's a Tamiyo that I can't currently answer. Why can't I pitch Douthie Voidwalker to Force of Will? It feels like my opponent's deck is going to eat me alive. Oh, it's a Daze. Disgusting. My opponent replays the land. Hate that as a draw. So I'm now going to play out the Murktide Regent. That will wall the Tamiyo. That will not wall the Tamiyo. Can't Force a Will back. So the Tamiyo is actually going to be attacking for damage from Noble Hierarch. My Douthie Voidwalker is a dead card. My Wasteland is pretty close to a dead card. My Force of Will is a dead card. This push is fine. I'll kill Tamiyo in response to a clue being cracked. Did not happen. In which case, I will just do this now before my opponent gets another card deeper in their deck. Crack a clue. As long as that next card there isn't Brainstorm, I'm fine. Halfling means Force of Will is even deader than it already was. Sewers is bad. The tapped land here is a massive deal breaker. I'll take that. Tundra played out into active Wasteland. I think my mana is more valuable than my opponent's mana, though. So I'm not going to Wasteland. I'm at 6, and I don't get to counter that. So my counterspell largely is not good. Murktide? It's not a very big Murktide. It is a Murktide that blocks. I'm so dead to the combo stuff my opponent can do. So I have 4 cards in graveyard, which gets most of my cost. I do have to tap the Wasteland here to finish things out. Sure. So I know that my next couple of cards are not amazing. Now that the Murktide is out of play, like, I'm just going to take a beating from these. And again, not being able to use lands that look like these is very rough. All right, Douthie goes 2. I'm at 7, taking 2 from the attack. I think I need to play out my creature. I don't know that I get to just hold up Force of Will for the hypothetical Nadu. Fuck. The opponent currently has 1 card in hand. Now they have 5. Yeah. And my shadow creature doesn't get to block. And it gets bigger. So I take 3 here. And I think I'm just dead on board next turn. Like, I can surveil. Another Douthie is not helping me. There's nothing cool with a void counter here. That was never a game. GG. I just don't win this matchup. Just outright, I do not win this matchup. I have some options. I think the way that I'm going to play this is that I'm not going to 2-for-1 myself against my opponent's deck that is going to bury me in cards. Anyway, I just don't like my entire deck here. So the Thoughtseizes are very bad. The Force of Wills are very bad. The 1-for-1 interaction doesn't hold up. Douthie Voidwalker doesn't block to stop the chip damage. My opponent has a ton of bounces for Murktide Regent. This Sink into Stupor is going to give me an aneurysm. But the fact that I can't use this land to Thoughtseize on 1, Thoughtseize on 2 really sucks here. I think I'm going to keep this hand. I'm just not happy. I think I have to get my black mana functional. More black mana? I don't really want more land. I have 3 land drops. Black is relevant, though. I'm gonna say no. Opponent's just passing the turn here, meaning my Wasteland isn't great. I found black mana anyway. So let's start going in. And I'm gonna do this way so that sometimes I get to Wasteland a dual land that's used to brainstorm. Because this land can't get basic island. I swear to God, if you Veil of Summer me. God damn it. How do I ever win? How do I ever win versus this deck? Now I don't get to use my other black mana to Thoughtseize. Gross. I will deal 3 damage to myself. Wasteland, sure. I own Wasteland. Welp. Surely they don't have another Veil of Summer. What? How is their deck so good? Like, my threats don't hold up versus Swords or Teferi or Endurance, and there's double Brainstorm here as well. The only path that I see forward here is take a Brainstorm, they Brainstorm, lock themselves, and they never find white mana. Fuck. Well, they found white mana. And they considered brainstorming and then did not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can Murktide Regent. I can't Murktide Regent and Wasteland. I think I'm going to Wasteland here, bluffing Bowmasters, and hope that they just let the land go. Okay, cool, that happened. Now, unfortunately, I can't Murktide because of this swamp. My life total isn't low enough for Death Shadow. I can't cast Stupor, so that's just my turn. Alright. That's not an island. That's maybe the first thing that I've got going for me here. But, like, this is my opponent's white mana for their pile of shit. God damn it, Douthie Voidwalker. I am losing my mind. Alright. Do this. Hey, life. This is down to 12. You know what's real bad? Death Shadow versus Swords to Plowshares. I don't know if you've played that game before, but it is a very unfun game to play. So I, in theory, can cast Murktide Regent and Death Shadow here, and then my opponent Swords to Plowshares Murktide Regent, and I also lose Death Shadow. Ah! I guess I cast Murktide Regent before Endurance comes down and takes out my graveyard, but I make it small. You can Brainstorm in response. Yeah. But now the Death Shadow is not great. Delighted Halfling is going to make future counterspells bad. Makes my opponent's Carpet better, but I need to do this for Douthie. I will absolutely take a Ponder. Any selection here is great. So on my previous turn, I could instead play the Death Shadow as a 1/1 and then have my opponent Swords that, and play the Murktide Regent this turn and have my opponent Swords that. I'm kind of trying to wiggle this in a spot where it's good later. Alright, well, Now my opponent has an onboard bounce spell, in addition to everything else, and endurance coming. I'm pretty close to just tapping out versus this opponent. This helps a lot. I have to do things at sorcery speed, though. Ugh. So I can do sorcery speed Bowmasters. Opponent has another Brainstorm. I will use this to ping the Hierarch, do some semblance of keeping my opponent's mana in check, and pass here. Alright, there's swords on the Bowmasters. My opponent can then Teferi minus on the Orc. I guess maybe gives me a window to do something else. I'm gonna just start getting beaten down by this stuff, though. Alright, Brainstorm. 3 mana for Brazen Borrower. Blue, blue, 1. Don't have black, black for Douthie. I guess it is Teferi, or sorry, Sheldred's Edict this turn. Let's go bam, bam, bam. Please sacrifice a Planeswalker. Deal with that problem. And bouncing the Carpet of Flowers out of play doesn't do a ton. Brazen Borrower is not really a threat, because Endurance is just here. That's rough. That's uncounterable. I could do a bounce to keep my opponent from drawing 1 card. I don't know that that's actually good. Alright. Opponent says, why not waste your own sewer? Alright, opponent, I don't know if this is clear to you from the other side of the table, but I have been shitting over my mana all game. I need black, black for my deck. I cannot wasteland my own sewers. I absolutely cannot do that and play functional Magic. I'm going to throw that Brazen Borrower in play. And we're going to try to go down on the beatdown, and it is not going to work. 16. Now that I have cast this Douthie, I can do some stuff that looks like this. Opponent hits the land drop, which is not unsurprising, right? I will concede to that. GG. Alright. Opening hand is fine. I have a Douthie Voidwalker that is castable on turn 2. So that's nice. Don't Tamiyo. Okay. Tamiyo is such a terror. I'm very sad that we are not playing Tamiyo in this deck. Okay, I don't want that land. Life total goes down. What are we playing against? You're playing against Wizards. What did Ponder do? Ponder shuffled. Opponent does not have stuff that does things. I will take their Force of Will. My opponent has no castable cards right now, and a random card on top of their library, which of course is the basic land that they need. So it's not wastelandable. So I'm going to let this trainer resolve, and it is my intention to play Douthie Voidwalker and then counter a Prismatic Ending or Flame of Honor. Whatever as a draw. I think I am inflicting wounds on myself. I would like Death Shadow to be good when I draw it. I do not expect that this Douthie Voidwalker is going to go all the way. The daze is awkward, though. It means that I can't cast Brazen Borrower on 3 as a follow-up threat. So, I'll daze that. I am glad that we're playing against something different. This Jeskai Wizards deck, or whatever you want to call it, has been doing pretty well in a couple of challenges, and I would like to see how good it actually is. I think I will Sewers this turn. Pretty aggressively putting things into Graveyard for Murktide. Ponder to Yard, even though it's a fine card. Send in for 3. I've got guaranteed Murktide Regent next turn. Ponder is fine. I would like this Murktide Regent to survive a hypothetical Flame of Honor. I'm at 11 already. What's out here? Prismatic Ending and Ponder. I think I'm going to Surveil again. Misty can go to Yard. I'll attack here. Opponent goes to 12. Then play Murktide. 2, 3, couple others. Alright, I now have a threat that lives through Flame of Honor. Opponent does have swords. I'm at 16. Douthie's a 4-turn clock. Flame of Honor kills Douthie. Hate that. That's very bad for me for tempo. Incidentally, my opponent has raised my life total to 16 by removing that Murktide Regent, meaning that Death Shadow is not live anymore. Yikes. I think I hurt myself. Go to 13, then Teferi shuts off my Brazen Borrower. Desperately need a Brainstorm here. Brainer comes in, finds Lorien Revealed, which is a red source, but it's not a non-basic red source. So I guess I've got that going for me. I will go to Punchies. I will attempt to Punchies to Fairy. I do not succeed. I will Ponder. These don't live through Flame of Honor. I guess that's life. And beating the dead horse into submission. No, sorry, that was a Ponder. That wasn't a Brainstorm, so I couldn't have doubled Douthied. JK. Horse is fine. This is, I presume, going to get a Volcanic Island. And it does. We're absolutely having the same problem that we had versus the Nadu deck. I need to... Doesn't matter. If I do this now, they just float the mana and they still get to... I'll still do it now. I'll give them a chance to make a mistake. Not float red, but it seems very obvious. So this is going to deal 5 to my Douthie Voidwalker and have my opponent draw 2 cards while they have Teferi and Tamiyo queued up. I am, I think, done here. This is a fucking beating. This gets bigger than Flame of Honor. This is fine versus card draw. The edicts technically take wizards off the table, which has text, but like taking the, 1/2, 1/3 body off the table isn't the most exciting thing. I guess I'll think about it. Hydroblast has some text. I'll think about that. It's mostly Flame of Honor and maybe something like 4th Aerlingas. My opponent has so much removal and is good at finding it and is good at forcing it through. I guess I'm going to get rid of these. I think I need to keep threat density. And I don't know that attacking my opponent's hand makes sense. My opponent's going to have a bunch of card draw with things like Tamiyo. Maybe I'll keep 1 force. The issue is, if I'm taking Thoughtseize out of the deck, I'm less good at growing Murktide Regent. I am so missing my own source of card advantage like Tamiyo. I do not cast spells with this. This is fine, but my opponent's deck is built to be resilient to Wasteland. I think I keep this and pitch 1 Wasteland and kind of hope that it works out. We will we'll play a modern deck. Go to 17 and then 15. Fuck. I guess I'll take the Flame. But like the Thundertrap trainers represent removal spells, at least potentially removal spells. So like looking at that hand, it is potentially a hand that has 4 different removal spells, which is a very scary thing to be looking at from a creature deck, and my opponent will have both basic blue and white mana immediately available. I don't know what exactly I'm working for, or towards, rather. These are fine. I'll make a land drop and pass. So... No! I'm out. I'm out, YouTube. My opponent's deck is so good against what I am doing. They're probably built to beat blue-black tempo, and ouchies. Alright. Overall thoughts on the deck list. So to start with, I have 2 primary problems. Number 1, the deck does not cast Douthie Voidwalker. That is just not a thing that consistently happens. Island, sink, 4 Wastelands don't contribute towards casting it. And 2x Undercity Sewers coming into play tapped means that you are so bad at casting that card. I was tripping all over that card all league. I understand wanting to play the sink into Stupors to enable Death Shadow. Like, I understand why those cards are there, but I don't know that Douthie Voidwalker works in this deck. I understand wanting to play it into this combo-oriented metagame with Reanimator at the top. I just don't think the math on the mana works. And we don't have an Underground Sea either. So when we need the untapped blue or black source that does not cost life, we won't always have it, right? Because Misty Rainforest can't get Swamp, for example. So the mana feels like a miss to me. The second thing that's a miss is there's no source of card advantage. Tamiyo is so insane. Like, Tamiyo at 1 mana, providing something that threatens to end the game with its ultimate or a clue engine is so strong. And we're also just not playing Bowmasters in the main deck. I think some number of those things need to be addressed if you want to be playing Death Shadow in Legacy. More generally, the games might just be so fast in a lot of cases that you want to be lower to the ground and you want your threats to come out on turn 1. So a blue-red Delver base, for example, that can have DRC and Tameo, if they want it coming down immediately, I think is much scarier than what we are doing here. I don't think I have many more thoughts beyond that I haven't already said in the league, so I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a day there. Have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya.